I am delighted to, despite the travel headaches, welcome Thomas Chung, Vice President and General Manager from the Playforge, makers of Zombie Farm. Awesome game. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, you should. Dedicated social mobile play. It'll be interesting to hear about what went right, what went wrong, and where the surprises were. So let's have a hand for Thomas Chung.
So a little bit about the Playforge. We're a mobile game developer founded at the end of 2009. We're bootstrapped, so we haven't taken any VC or angel funding, and we're 20 employees and growing. Zombie Farm, we launched February 4th, 2010, and actually by we, I mean one person. It was Vince, who is he co-founded with his wife Susan, actually, and within a period of 4 months, basically went from concept to completion. So he did the design and the development by himself. In May, we hit the milestone of serving our 1 billionth session, and I believe the last public figure we've released is 16 million downloads to date. So we've had some good fortune. We've been in the top 10 free engrossing in over 60 countries on the App Store, and we're the #1 top grossing freemium game in 2010. So our philosophy about gaming, and this is one that we've thought about quite a bit since throughout the history of the Playforge, is that the freemium, I think, in addition to just the games being free, it's really about not necessarily about how you're monetizing your users, but how you're giving them more information before putting a purchasing decision in front of them. I think the biggest misconception about freemium games today is that you have to use real money to get anywhere in the game. We see that a lot in the comments, and it's not really true. We'd go out of our way to try and change that conception about ourselves. So Zombie Farm actually is one of the most generous games when it comes to freemium games out there. We give away probably about 6 times as much virtual currency as is purchased. And we just learned that it's because the users appreciate it. They'll buy things because they feel like it's more fair, more honest, and more people enjoy it. So it's family friendly. If you can't do it with your friend's mom, it doesn't belong in the game. This is kind of one of our guiding things. We just really want in order to get as wide appeal as possible, it's supposed to be a family-friendly theme. User-centric, this is pretty self-explanatory. If you wouldn't appreciate it while playing the game yourself, we don't put it into the game. Service-oriented. We treat it basically as a dialogue. Users will tell us what they want, basically through their actions or their feedback, their comments, things like that. And what we put back in the game is us saying, like, well, I think this is what you said. And the last part of our philosophy is we just try not to suck. So it's easy to say, kind of hard to do. It really requires that we challenge our own assumptions on a regular basis. Developing new hypotheses on what we can improve, and then it really requires that you think about the consumer experience. So a lot of times you'll see some of these games that have like purchase buttons hidden beneath UI elements that you're clicking on frequently and stuff like that. And if you were just looking at the metrics, you might say like, oh wow, when I made this UI change, I started making twice as much money. This is a great thing. And in actuality, it's a really bad thing. And so you have to kind of be eating your own dog food, playing the game, seeing if you would like it yourself. So this was a graph of our first 365 days. So this starts in February. You can see there's no data, and that's because we launched without analytics at first. And that was a huge mistake. So if any of you out there are thinking about launching games in the near term, I would highly recommend putting analytics in there. It's simply, you have more information with which you can make better business decisions. This is where we put it back in. And by this time, in May, we were running some of our first advertising. Well, that's a little bit off, but in May, we were running our first advertisements, and we just weren't confident enough with the data that we had to really understand. How long our users were playing the game, what kind of monetization we were getting out of them, and because of that, you'll actually see that our daily active user base kind of trailed down a couple of times. It pops every now and then when we did a big ad spend, but just because we didn't really have the data to support why we were doing what we were doing, we couldn't continue, right? So after a couple months, that changed. Between May and August, we started giving away more virtual currency, improved the game. Between actually May and August, the star rating or the comment rating went up to 4.5, so 4.5 stars. So yeah, I mean, I guess this is kind of the process of us just learning, going through, releasing new updates, and gathering more data. And then you'll see, really in September, this is when we started being more sophisticated. We added a questing system at the end of September. We added Game Center support so that we could allow people to tie their accounts to a unique ID so that we could save data loss. And then by November 3rd, we were automatically saving for our Game Center users. And then by Christmas, we had some conservative estimates then on how well we thought our users were monetizing and sticking around. We had several months of very reliable data by that point. By most measures, this is probably a little bit slow. I think a lot of really scaled companies, they'll have pretty large teams. Actually, by December, the Zombie Farm team was 4 people. It was Vince, his wife, and 2 other engineers. I didn't actually join until the end of December. So all of that was really the work of 4 people. And so, going through some of our biggest regrets, I think really the lack of metrics at the outset, that kind of hurt us. That kind of kept us from progressing. Shipping updates where we were losing data, people were having their games crash. That was just devastating on a number of different occasions. In one instance, it didn't actually show in the daily active user numbers, but in one instance, we shipped an update where nobody could pay for anything. So that was devastating. Don't do that. And then actually just one other thing was that we tied our virtual currency to $1. Right? We tied a brain to $1, and it kind of made sense because the transactions in the App Store were, the lowest one is $1. But it turns out that really people spend money with much more granularity than that. It's very difficult to deliver $1 worth of virtual good value and at the same time keep the barrier to entry low for purchasers. So if we could go back and do it again, that's probably something that we would change. And I think these are some of the biggest surprises for us. So one, I think pretty common misconception is that Zombie Farm is a social game, and it's not yet. It's a freemium game, and it was still well received, but you just couldn't play with your friends until next week when we'll be releasing that update. but we learn some interesting things along the way. We learned that constant updates could sustain our growth. So over the course of that year, we put out 22 updates. And we learned that one of the easiest ways for us to reach new markets and get new users was to localize. And we found that in both China and Japan, actually. So we localized in Chinese and are working with another developer in China. And then we actually support Japanese as well. Some surprises about our community that they just actually were they're much more diligent than we were. They had better documentation than we did on the wiki that they created. So we scrapped what we had internally and just started contributing to the public wiki. Your fans are going to be your greatest asset. If you can find somebody who really cares about the game, support them because, well, one, they're doing it for free, but the other is simply that these are the kinds of people who are your evangelists. Another thing that surprised us was the level of attachment that people had to their virtual items. We made tons of kids cry when we had one data loss bug where they all lost their Easter bunnies. And then lastly was just the number of times we get the comments, "Wow, you're so much better than so-and-so," because they just don't seem to care. And one of the things that people seem to be surprised about is that we respond to every email sent to our support staff or to our support alias. So since the very beginning, we've taken the time to write everyone who's written us, and we take customer support very seriously because we think that is what really drives the value in Zombie Farm. So what's next for us is, as I mentioned, social interaction. We'll be allowing people to play with friends, and actually, I guess you can't really tell from this screenshot, but this guy is visiting his friend's farm, and he's about to play a game of tag with his friend's zombies. So that's a countdown. That's the number of zombies left. That's the time he has to do it. It's pretty fun. You're interacting with your friends. So I think, I think one of the things that we really want to encourage are people playing with their friends in a meaningful way. So if you've ever played something like Hanging with Friends, then a lot of the value in that social interaction is just creating content, doing something with your friends, but not necessarily chatting with them, right? If you wanted to chat with them, you just kind of call them. So we tried to emulate something like that. And then finally, we are coming to Android. That was another request from our community, and we decided to do so with DNA and Njimoko. So I know there's not a lot of time left, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
I think that you said that the initial game was made with only 4 team members, and I'm just, no.
One
team member. And then it grew to 4 at some point?
Yes.
And only having 1 person or then up to 4 people developing, what did the development cycle look like and how was it developed?
Well, the first 4 months, as you can imagine, I guess Vince, he left his job as a console game developer. And so there's nothing like being out of a job that makes you work really, really fast. So the first 4 months, as you can imagine, were probably pretty quickly paced. The game actually had the tremendous advantage of being financially successful from the beginning. So taking that out of the equation, at that time it became more of a product of passion. And so when he brought on the other 2 developers, it was really because he felt like the game wasn't finished yet. I think, we'll never really feel like the game is done, but they were still moving at a pretty quick pace. 22 updates in 1 year that's an update every 2 or 3 weeks. So. Great. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to take them afterwards. Thank you.